morning. So today we're going to start a 6-week sermon series at Centerpoint based off of Kyle Idleman's book, Not a Fan. And there's also a 6-week video curriculum that goes along with this sermon series. And I'm going to encourage people in our church to participate in this, and we'll be providing 2 different options, ways they can do that. Option 1 will be for the next 6 weeks here at Centerpoint on Wednesday nights. We will show each episode and then have a discussion time afterwards. So it'll be on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8. Option number 2 is each week I'll have an insert in the bulletin, and sometime during the week you can gather with your family or get together with some of your friends, and you can watch each episode on YouTube. And then the insert will have a discussion guide to go along with the episode. And I encourage everyone to watch each of these episodes throughout sometime during the week. So as I get started in my message, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Ozark Christian College. And it's one of the missions that we support at Centerpoint. And back in the day, it was called Ozark Bible College. It became Ozark Christian College. Actually, my freshman year when I went to college there, they changed the name to Ozark Christian College. Well, it kind of had a nickname, Ozark Bridal College. And after I graduated from high school and people found out I was going to go to OCC or OBC back then, I got teased a lot that, oh, you're going to Ozark Bridal College. You better be careful because the girls that go to school there are just looking for a husband. And, I took that all with a grain of salt. And so I start my college career. I'm 18 years old. I'm a freshman at Ozark, and I met a girl in my 7 a.m. Acts class, and we ended up going out on a date, and I kid you not, on the first date, she wanted to have the DTR talk. And if you don't know what DTR is, don't worry about it. I didn't know either. It is the define the relationship talk. She wanted to have this talk on our first date, and wanted to know where's this relationship going, and started talking about marriage and wanting to have kids. Needless to say, that was my one and only date with that girl. I mean, I turned and burned. And from that day forward, Ozark Bridal College was no longer a joke to me. And I was very careful. But get this, by the end of the first semester, that girl was engaged to a guy that was on the baseball team named Bobby. And I was thinking, man, that poor guy. So, as we go through the series, I want us to examine our relationship with Jesus. I want us to have the DTR talk with Jesus, the define the relationship. We need to find out where we stand with Jesus. And as we do this, we're going to look at a verse often throughout the series that really lays out what it means to follow Jesus. And it's found in Luke chapter 9, verse 23. And it says, "Then Jesus said to them, 'Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me.'" Now, some of you may welcome this talk because you're ready to move forward to a different level of commitment in relationship with Jesus. You're ready to move past the casual to something more committed. Some of you may be like, I'm not ready for this. I like the setup I have. Jesus seems like a pretty good guy. I enjoy coming to church, hanging out with folks. I'm comfortable, but I don't know about this idea of taking things to a different level. And then there's probably some of you that think, I don't need to have a define my relationship talk with Jesus because I've already have, and I know exactly where I stand in my relationship with Jesus. And okay, good. I'm glad. But I encourage you to be open-minded and to reflect on what you might be able to get from this series. As I have studied and prepared for this, I certainly have been reflecting on some things in my own life. So the title of this first sermon is Fan or Follower. And the word fan is defined as an enthusiastic admirer. We are all fans of different things. You know, some of you are sports fans. I certainly am. I mean, you can go into my office and you would quickly learn which teams I'm a fan of just by looking around my office. I mean, you see hats, posters, cups, bobbleheads, and you will learn very quickly that I'm a Cardinals fan, I'm a Royals fan, I'm a Chiefs fan. And those of us who are sports fans, you know, we have jerseys, we have hats, you know, we watch the game, we cheer on our team, and then after the game, we evaluate how the game went. When we win, we talk about with others about how great the game was, maybe how well Wainwright pitched, or talk about the hitting of Goldschmidt. But then when they lose, we critique our team and talk about how they need better pitching, or how, man, our hitters, you know, Goldschmidt's in the slump, or whatever. We all understand the concept of being a sports fan. And so, are you a fan or are you a follower of Jesus? You know, the church has potential to easily become a stadium full of fans. And let's be clear, Jesus never cared about having fans. If you define a fan as an enthusiastic admirer, then fans were not important to Jesus. You know, we have a tendency to come together once a week and be fans of Jesus. I mean, we sit down in our seats, we open up our bulletins, and we sit through the singing of some songs, we listen to a sermon, and then on the way home, we evaluate the service. You know, we give the song selection a thumbs up or a thumb down, we evaluate how good or bad the sermon was, and then we come back next week and we do it again. And some are really big fans. I mean, they know all the songs by memory. They don't need to look up at the scriptures we put up on the screen because they can open up their Bibles and quickly find the scripture on their own. And they you know, they're big fans. When I say you're a follower of Jesus, I'm not asking how quick you can turn to a passage. I'm not asking, do you go to church? I'm not asking, is your name in the church directory? I'm not asking if you grew up going to VBS or church camp or CIY. I'm not asking if your parents or your grandparents are Christians. We're going to go deeper than that. Through this series, we're going to talk about what does it really mean to be a follower of Jesus. Because a fan is just an enthusiastic admirer. I am a Cardinals fan. I am an enthusiastic admirer. But I've never played one inning of one game on a ball field in St. Louis. I've never had to sacrifice anything for the Cardinals. The Cardinals didn't reach out to me before the season started and saying, hey, we really would like for you to start giving us $300 a month so that we can re-sign Pujols to come back to the Cardinals. You know, I'm a fan of Albert Pujols. I know about him. I know his stats. I know he's close to 700 home runs. I know of him, but I don't personally know him. And in 2012, when he left the Cardinals for a big contract with the Angels, I was no longer a fan of Pujols. My son Tanner was really upset, and he took all of his Pujols stuff, his jerseys, his posters, and he took it out here in our backyard, and he burned it. Now, I was upset, but I kept my Pujols shirt. This thing has been in my closet since 2012. I haven't worn it since 2012, but I kept it because I thought, you know, someday this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer. Here's the thing. Fans of Jesus know of Jesus, but they don't really know Jesus. They don't have a personal relationship with Jesus. And I think fans of Jesus, they cheer for Jesus when things are going well, but they walk away when it's a difficult season. They're kind of like fair weather fans. And I have to admit, I confess, I'm a fair weather fan when it comes to the Royals. I've got their stuff in my office. And as a matter of fact, right now I was going to show you my Royals hat that I have, but I can't find it. I mean, I haven't worn it all year. There's nothing to cheer about for the Royals this year. I mean, they're not good, and then some of the good players they did have, they traded off. And so it's just kind of sad and pathetic to even try to watch them. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Here's the thing about fans of Jesus. They're fair weather fans. And then sometimes, it's like they just want to be close enough to Jesus to get all the benefits, but not so close that it requires anything of them. And so as we ponder this question, are you a fan or are you a follower? I'm going to ask you 3 questions this morning. And the first one is, why are you here? As we read through the Gospels, Jesus at different points in his ministry, he would like draw a line in the sand and separate the fans from the followers. And one of those instances is found in John chapter 6. Jesus is addressing a crowd that had grown to over 5,000 people. And Jesus was popular. I mean, news had spread about his miraculous healings. These crowds of thousands came to cheer him on. But Jesus knew why these crowds were coming. And in John 6:2, it says, a great crowd of people followed Jesus because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. You see, the reason the crowds were showing up was for the spectacle. They didn't care as much about the life-changing teaching. They were there for the show. And most of us know this story. After a full day, the crowds were hungry, and Jesus asked one of his disciples, Philip, to feed all these people. And Philip's like, Lord, it would take 8 months' wages to feed all these people. From Philip's perspective, it couldn't be done. But then one of his other disciples, Andrew, found a boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus uses this boy's sack lunch, and he feeds the entire crowd. And there's even baskets of food left over. Well, after the dinner, the crowd decides to camp out all night so that they can be with Jesus the next day. I mean, these are big-time fans of Jesus. I mean, they camped out. But the next morning, they get up, and Jesus isn't around. He's gone. I mean, their meal ticket was gone. And then they soon realized that during the night, Jesus and the disciples had crossed to the other side of the lake. And so by the time they catch up with Jesus, it's probably about lunchtime, and they're starving. But Jesus shuts down the all-you-can-eat buffet, and he wants to have the DTR talk with them. That's define the relationship talk with them. And in verse 26, this is what he says to the crowds. Very truly, I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. These people were following Jesus for the free food, for the meal ticket. That they weren't interested in what Jesus could, that they were only interested in what Jesus could do for them. So then in verse 35, as Jesus is having this talk with them, he tells them, I am the bread of life. And whoever comes to me will never go hungry. And whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. Well, suddenly, Jesus is the only thing on the menu. And these crowds are going to have to decide if Jesus will satisfy. Jesus has this DTR talk with them, and they're going to have to decide, am I a fan of Jesus, or am I going to follow Jesus? And then we get down to the very last verse here of John 6, verse 66, and it says, from that time on, many of them turned back and no longer followed Jesus. You see, what Jesus offered isn't what many of them wanted. So they left. And here's the thing. Jesus doesn't chase after them. Jesus doesn't soften the message to make it more appealing. He doesn't say, wait, come back. I'll have an ice cream social for you. He just lets them go. Because Jesus doesn't want fans. He wants followers. So I'm back to that question, why are you here? Is it because your parents or your spouse made you be here today? Is it because you like the people here? I mean, there are some pretty great people in our church family here at Centerpoint. Is it because we have good food at Centerpoint? Because we certainly do. I mean, do you enjoy the fellowship? Do you enjoy the worship service? And all those reasons are fine and good. But Jesus wants there to be a point where you sit down with him and you have the DTR talk. You define the relationship. Why are you here? For Jesus, he wants to have a deep relationship with you. And he wants you to follow him with a desire to have a deep relationship with him also. And that leads us to the second question. Are you all in? Back to that verse in Luke 9:23. Then Jesus said to them, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. And Jesus makes it pretty clear here that being a follower of Jesus requires complete commitment. A follower of Jesus is absolutely loyal, completely committed. They are all in. In Matthew chapter 13, Jesus tells a bunch of different parables. And one of them is the parable of the hidden treasure and the parable of the pearl merchant. And it goes something like this. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. And when a man found it, in his joy, he went and he sold all that he had and he bought that field. And the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. And when he found the one of great value, he went away and he sold everything he had and he bought it. Here's the point to these two parables. A relationship with Jesus is more valuable than anything else. And a person must be willing to give up everything to follow Jesus. The man who found the treasure in the field, I mean, he kind of stumbled on it by accident. But when he found it, he knew the value. And the merchant that was searching for fine pearls, he was searching. And when he found the one of great value, he sold everything he had and he purchased it. Some people today, I mean, they aren't maybe really even searching for a relationship with Jesus. And they just kind of stumble onto it. Maybe they get invited by a girlfriend to come to church, and along the way they discover that a relationship with Jesus is more valuable than anything else, and they decide to follow Jesus. I mean, other people are out there are searching. They just have this emptiness, and they're looking and searching. And when they find Jesus, they know that a relationship with Jesus is more valuable than anything. And they're all in. They follow Jesus. They become absolutely committed to Jesus. But here's the thing. Many people don't do well with absolute commitment. They prefer selective commitment. I'm going to follow Jesus, but I'm going to pick and choose the areas in which I will follow him. And I'll give you a few examples. I will follow Jesus, but don't ask me to forgive the person who hurt me. I'm going to never let go of that resentment. Or I will follow Jesus, but don't talk to me about money. I work hard for that money. I will follow Jesus, but don't ask me to abstain from things that I enjoy, like partying with my friends or my sexual desires. I will follow Jesus, but don't expect me to take time to be a part of any kind of ministry. In other words, I will follow Jesus in the areas where I'm comfortable, in the areas that I agree with. I'm a Christian, but I'm not all in. Well, if that describes you, maybe you need to self-evaluate. Are you really a follower of Jesus? Or are you just a fan of Jesus? Fans tell Jesus there are some areas of my life that are off limits. Fans don't like the idea of going all in. They aren't wild about having to make any kind of sacrifices or about denying themselves of something that they desire or crave. So when you look at that first question, why are you here? If you aren't here for the right reasons, chances are you're not going to be willing to go all in. In John chapter 3, we meet a guy named Nicodemus. And Nicodemus has that DTR talk with Jesus. You know, Nicodemus was a fan of Jesus, but he wasn't just any fan. He was a well-respected man of God. He was a member of the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin was this elite group of religious leaders. And so Nicodemus was probably one of the crowd. He had listened to the teachings of Jesus and saw his miracles. And Jesus' compassion and love inspired Nicodemus. And Nicodemus was ready to maybe take this relationship with Jesus to the next level. But it wasn't just that easy. And it never is. I mean, he would lose a lot if he went public as a follower of Jesus. I mean, what would others think if they knew that Nicodemus, this elite religious leader, was an admirer of this homeless carpenter turned rabbi from the nothing town of Nazareth? If Nicodemus became a follower of Jesus, it would come with a high price tag. He would be kicked out of the Sanhedrin. He'd lose his reputation as a highly respected religious leader. But being a secret admirer of Jesus wouldn't cost him anything. So the story begins, and I want us to take notice of what time of day it was. In John 3:2, it says, Nicodemus came to Jesus at night and said, Rabbi, I know you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the miraculous signs you're doing if God were not with him. Now, it would be easy to overlook why Nicodemus came to Jesus at night. But here's the thing, at night no one would see him. At night he could avoid having an awkward conversation with other religious leaders. At night he could spend time with Jesus without anyone knowing. He could maybe begin this relationship with Jesus without having to make any changes. He could follow Jesus without it impacting his job. His friends and family wouldn't have to know. He could talk to Jesus in a way that wouldn't interfere with his comfortable life. And that's how a lot of fans are. They are happy to follow Jesus as long as it doesn't require any significant changes or interfere with their lives. And here is the reality that Nicodemus and all of us are about to have impressed upon us. There is no way to follow Jesus without him interfering with your life. Following Jesus will cost you something. Following Jesus always costs something. I mean, for Nicodemus, it would cost him a powerful position. It would cost him the respect of his coworkers. It could cost him his livelihood. It could possibly cost him some of his friendships, possibly even affect some of his family relationships. And what I want you to think about right now is this. Has following Jesus cost you anything? How has following Jesus interfered with your life? And I encourage you to write that down and to kind of ponder that question this week. Has following Jesus cost you anything? You know, most of us don't mind minor changes in our lives. But guys, Jesus wants to turn our lives upside down. You know, fans come to Jesus thinking tune-up. Jesus is thinking a complete overhaul. Nicodemus had come to the point of belief. And he tells Jesus here in verse 2 that he believes that Jesus really is from God. But where would he go from here? And Jesus gets right to the point with Nicodemus. And he tells him in verse 3, Jesus declared back to Nicodemus, I tell you the truth, no one can see the kingdom of God unless he is born again. Jesus is telling Nicodemus that he must humble himself and be born again into a whole new way of life. Nicodemus had a decision about Jesus that wasn't the same as following Jesus. You see, Jesus wouldn't accept a relationship with Nicodemus where he simply believed. He wanted Nicodemus to follow. You know, many people have made the decision to believe in Jesus without making a commitment to follow Jesus. And that just isn't an option. Jesus is looking for more than words of belief. He is looking to see how those words are lived out in your life. We cannot separate the message of believe from the message follow. If you read the Gospels, Jesus says, believe in me about 5 times. And he says, follow me 20 times. You know, a lot of us, know John 3:16 by heart. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him would not perish but have eternal life. But not very many people quote Luke 9:23, where Jesus says, if you want to be my disciple, you must deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. You see, those two are firmly connected. One can't live without the other. And I think too often we spend much of our time and effort bringing people to the point of belief without clearly calling on them to follow. And Jesus doesn't hold back with Nicodemus. Following Jesus would require a commitment that would cost Nicodemus a great deal. And that is true throughout Scripture. I mean, Noah couldn't follow God without building an ark. Abraham couldn't follow God unless he left everything near, dear, and clear for the distant, vague, and unknown. Moses couldn't follow God without standing in front of Pharaoh. Elijah couldn't follow God unless he stood up to the prophets of Baal. Peter, Andrew, James, John, they couldn't follow Jesus unless they left their fishing nets. Being a follower of Jesus is a 24-hour-a-day commitment, and it will interfere with your life. That is a guarantee. You know, some people preach a gospel that costs them nothing and offers them everything. But guys, I'm here to tell you, there is no forgiveness without repentance. There is no salvation without surrender. There is no life without death. There is no believing without committing. So, why are you here? Are you all in? And then here's the third question. Have you made it your own? You know, many of us start going to church because of a parent. You know, mom made you. Your dad said you had to. There was no option. Or maybe you started coming because a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a spouse. You come because they like it when you come. You come to appease them. But people who attend church because parents make them come or to appease someone, it can be easy for them just to become a fan of Jesus. I mean, you start coming because you have to or to appease someone, then pretty soon you kind of get into the flow of things. You know some of the songs, you recognize some of the Bible stories, you get to know some of the people in the church, and you could say you become a fan of Jesus. But here's the question. Are you walking on the coattails of your parents' faith, of your spouse's faith, of your boyfriend or your girlfriend's faith? Or have you made it your own? Jesus wants to have a relationship with you. He doesn't want you on the coattails of someone else's faith. He doesn't want fans. He wants followers. You know, as we get back to Nicodemus, he meets with Jesus at night in John chapter 3. And we're left wondering, what's Nicodemus going to do after having the DTR talk with Jesus? I mean, he had started out as a fan who observed Jesus with the crowds. He came to a point where he believed that Jesus came from God. He met with Jesus secretly at night. But where is it going to go from here? And then he pops up again in John chapter 7. The popularity of Jesus had continued to grow. The religious leaders are overcome with jealousy. The Sanhedrin met together to find reasons to silence this Jesus guy. You know, one of their roles was to judge false prophets, and they're looking drum up some sort of accusation to indict Jesus as being a false teacher. So Nicodemus is sitting with this group of 72 men listening as they are conspiring on how to bring Jesus down. Now, Nicodemus believes that Jesus is the Son of God, but would he say anything? Would he do anything? Would he say something in defense of Jesus? And then in John 7:50 and 51, Nicodemus, who had gone to Jesus earlier and who was one of their own number, asked, "Does our law condemn anyone without first hearing him to find out what he is doing?" So Nicodemus stops short of publicly saying that he believes, but he does risk his career and his reputation, and he publicly speaks up on behalf of Jesus. You see, guys, this is no longer a private conversation about what he believes. He allows what he believes to interfere with his life. I mean, it's interfering with his work, it's interfering with his relationships, and in that moment, he stops being a fan and he's beginning the journey of following Jesus. So how does his peers respond? How does the Sanhedrin respond? In John 7:52, they said, "Are you from Galilee too?" To us, that doesn't seem too harsh. But they are clearly trying to embarrass Nicodemus for associating with Jesus. I mean, Nazareth was a small, insignificant town that no one was proud to be from. And they even had a saying, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" And the Sanhedrin laughed at Jesus because of where he was from. And now they're using that to attack Nicodemus. This was a hard shot to his ego and to his reputation. And any hope of following Jesus without it interfering in his life was shot down with that one question: "Are you from Galilee too?" As I close up this message, at the end of John's Gospel, there's one other reference to Nicodemus. And it's found in John chapter 19, after Jesus had been crucified. And it tells us that Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. And Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but he was a secret follower of Jesus because he feared the Jews. And with Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. And he was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who had earlier met with Jesus at night. And Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds. And taking Jesus' body, the two of them wrapped it with spices and in strips of linen. Guys, this would have been an extremely expensive and costly gesture by Nicodemus. And make no mistake about it, this gesture cost him more than money. He was no longer hiding his affection for Jesus. Everyone now knows that he is a follower of Jesus. After Jesus' death, others went into hiding. And Nicodemus steps up and makes this great gesture of affection and devotion to Jesus. Nicodemus was no longer a fan. He was a follower. How about you? Have you made Jesus your own? Are you a fan or are you a follower? God bless. Have a good day.